This video is about planning the modification of my '83 Suzuki GS650 Katana to make my first ever cafe racer. In this series, I'll be repairing and modifying my bike over the coming months. Stick around to see where I got my inspiration and which changes I'm planning on carrying out. So why a cafe racer and not a street bike or a cruiser? Well, for me a cafe racer is simply more appealing, and for a few different reasons, namely looks, cost and practicality. One of the things that originally drew me to cafe racers is the simplicity of design that is so often found in these bikes. The way the engine is visible and accentuated by the tank, the frame, the seat, for me underlines the fact that you're sitting on something mechanical and powerful, and unlike so many modern bikes, doesn't hide that away under layers of brightly colored carbon and plastic. This is further enhanced by the often open or short rear end and sometimes free-hanging seat, as if to say, hey, look at me, I'm only just hanging on while this thing propels me down the street. Then there are details like the tire size, where you can find everything from old school skinny tires to wildly oversized rubbers trying to convince you that the bike is some kind of dragster, to even chunky off-road types ready to hit the trails. This versatility in appearance, without necessarily having any real basis in performance, allows builders a degree of projection or even playfulness, and I think that flexibility is very appealing. And then there's the exhaust, the finishing detail that both draws the eye from the motor to the rear and at the same time gives the bike its noise. Here I'm split between differing approaches. On the one hand, I love the examples of intricate and complicated twisting, turning and snaking around the motor and frame. And on the other hand, the simple and raw, almost industrial look achieved with heat wrap is pretty cool. These are just a few of the many visual elements that I like about cafe racers, and there are obviously many other details that can make up these bikes, and to be honest, that in itself is also a great feature. Cafe racers can be so wide-ranging, from the very simplest to the most over-engineered complicated creations. That leads me conveniently to the topic of cost. Here the flexibility to give your bike its own identity means that you're not forced down an expensive path of stock parts and predetermined appearance. To a certain extent, you're able to modify your bike in any way you want. The cost for a cafe racer project can therefore vary depending on the results that you want to achieve. Do you want a bike that just starts and runs with a couple of low-cost swap-in parts like mirrors and lights? Or are you planning on frame chopping and an all-in paint job of fenders, tanks, wheels and frames? And as I imagine many other people do, you can always continue to carry out changes as you save money together. It can be an ongoing process until you get the result that you want. The final element that appeals to me about cafe racers is practicality. This is an especially relevant reason for me and probably a lot of other novice bike owners. Unlike the highly technical modern bikes of today with electronic systems like Deep Blue and assembled with a multitude of specialty tools and equipment, cafe racers are simple machines capable of being maintained and repaired with little more than a repair manual, a Phillips head screwdriver and a set of wrenches. I've never really worked on anything mechanical other than my own bicycle, so I'm hoping that a logical and somewhat methodical approach is all I need. So, what do I have to work with and what's my overall plan? Well, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, I have a 1983 Suzuki GS650 Katana. To be honest, I don't know much about the bike's history and what it meant for Suzuki or the bike market as a whole in the early 80s. Maybe I'll try to find out more about this as the project progresses. I myself bought the bike back in the spring of 2010 from a guy who had painted pretty much all of it black, removed some of the fairing underneath the seat, and gave it a different exhaust. It started and ran fine, and I used it that summer to visit my girlfriend. The following year, my girlfriend and I moved in together, and I hardly used it anymore, so I decided to unregister it, cancel my insurance, and store it. Since then, it's just rotted away in my brother's garage and hasn't been touched, so now it's time for a lease of new life. To mock up my design, I've tried to Photoshop a picture of a stock katana and include as many of the details I would like to achieve as it was possible with my extremely limited Photoshop skills. So, as you can see here, I really like the look of the short and open rear end achieved by the shortened frame and the cleared out area underneath the seat. The 83 Katana doesn't lend itself so well to this design idea as, for example, a Honda CX550, but I think it'll be possible to get a similar result. I've lowered the handlebars and mirrors and speedo to give that more sleek appearance which is characteristic for a cafe racer. I'm going to keep the oversized tank for now, even though it's not the most attractive shape. And for colors, I would really like to play around with a racing green and white stripe color scheme for the tank and front mudguard. I'm not sure about the engine color. As mentioned, everything is black at the moment, and it would be really nice with some highlights on the engine, either in chrome or possibly white, which is not something that I've seen very many examples of. I'll be getting my hands dirty and taking stock of my bike after it's sitting still for the past 4 years. If you'd like to see how that goes, be sure to subscribe and let me know in the comments below what inspired you in your build and of course what you think of my plan.